The most important person in this world is my daughter. You are so much more. You are so much more than even you know.
Christina Applegate has always been a beloved figure in Hollywood, known for her charm, sense of humor, and the warmth she brings to every role. But behind her public image is a woman who has carried deep struggles for most of her life. One of her most emotional statements was about her daughter. Christina once said, "The most important person in this world is my daughter. You are so much more than even you know." These words show the strength of her love and how much being a mother means to her. But at the same time, those words also remind us that behind her smiling face is a story filled with sadness, illness, and a past that was not as perfect as people may have believed. Today, Christina faces a life very different from the one she once lived. Her acting career, which spanned decades, has been cut short not because she lost passion for it, but because her health has taken away her strength. She has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a disease that slowly affects the nervous system and makes even everyday tasks difficult. This has forced her to stop acting, even though she still has so much talent and love for her work. However, Christina's illness is not the only heartbreaking part of her journey. The truth of her life goes back to her childhood, when she was thrown into the world of Hollywood at an age when most children are learning how to play, not how to perform. Her upcoming memoir promises to reveal painful details of her past, including the struggles she faced as a child star, the pressure to stay thin, and the abuse she experienced. For many fans who only knew her as the funny and bright actress on TV, these truths may come as a shock. Christina Applegate's life, when seen from the outside, looks like the story of a successful actress who made millions of people laugh. But when we look closer, it becomes clear that her journey was filled with obstacles that shaped her into a survivor rather than just a star. Christina Applegate was born on November 25, 1971, in Hollywood, California. For many people, being born in Hollywood may just mean growing up in a big city. But for Christina, it meant something very different. Hollywood was not just the place where she was born. It was the place that defined her childhood, her career, and even her struggles. Her father, Robert Applegate, worked as a record producer, and her mother, Nancy Pretty, was an actress and singer. On the surface, this might sound like the beginning of a perfect Hollywood story. But, in reality, things were much more complicated. Christina's parents separated not long after her birth, leaving her mother to raise her alone. Nancy had no steady wealth or comfort. She had to work hard, taking on singing gigs, acting roles, and auditions just to survive. Babysitters were a luxury she could not afford, so she often took Christina everywhere she went, to rehearsals, auditions, and sets. By the time Christina was just 3 months old, she appeared with her mother on the soap opera Days of Our Lives. Soon after, she also starred in a commercial for Playtex baby bottles when she was only 5 months old. While most babies spent their time at home surrounded by toys, Christina was surrounded by cameras and lights. From a very young age, she was no longer just a daughter, but also a performer. Someone who was expected to help her mother financially by being marketable. This meant her childhood was never truly normal. Instead of focusing on playdates and school in the early years, she was focused on being. Even simple acts of keeping her happy on set were connected to performance, like being bribed with M&Ms so she could stay quiet during filming. These experiences shaped her identity from the start, teaching her that her value came from how she looked and how well she could perform. This pressure, which began before she could even talk, stayed with her for decades. By the time Christina was in kindergarten, she was already a member of the Screen Actors Guild. This meant she wasn't living a childhood like most kids. Instead, she was part of an industry that saw her more as a product than a child. At just 9 years old, she was cast in the horror movie Jaws of Satan, playing the daughter of a local businessman. While the film itself did not become famous, for Christina it marked the beginning of her transition from commercials and background roles to more serious acting opportunities. Soon, she began to get guest appearances in shows like Charles in Charge and Silver Spoons. In 1986, she even won a Young Artist Award for her role in Heart of the City. From the outside, She looked like a rising star who was destined for greatness. But behind the cameras, her personal life was far from glamorous. Hollywood had already started to damage her. When she was only 8 years old, a neighborhood boy called her fat. It was just one word, but that insult stuck with her for the rest of her life. That small moment triggered years of insecurity, eating disorders, and a painful relationship with her body. Her mother, Nancy, also played a role in this pressure. Believing that thinness was necessary for success, she enrolled Christina in Weight Watchers as a teenager. Instead of enjoying her youth, Christina was learning to count calories and restrict food. At one point, she admitted that she survived on just 5 almonds a day. If she ate 6, she would feel like a failure and punish herself emotionally. These habits were not just dangerous, they were life-threatening, but no one around her seemed to notice. Instead, people praised her thinness, including her own mother, who once asked her, "How did you do it?" When Christina lost weight, without realizing how harmful it truly was, this lack of support made Christina feel even more alone. While the world saw a beautiful young actress with comedic talent, Christina saw someone who was constantly at war with her own body. Christina Applegate has always been one of the most beloved actresses in Hollywood. Fans remember her for her wit, charm, and the warmth she brought to every performance. She made millions laugh during her career. But behind her smile was a woman who carried struggles most people could never imagine. One of her most touching statements about her life came when she spoke about her daughter. Christina said, "The most important person in this world is my daughter. You are so much more than even you know." These words show how deeply she values being a mother, and how much her daughter means to her. But they also reveal a truth that many people overlook, despite her fame. Christina's life has been marked by sadness, loss, and battles she never asked for. Today, she is no longer acting, not because she lost her love for her craft, but because her health forced her to stop. She has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS, a disease that attacks the central nervous system and makes everyday life unpredictable and difficult. For someone whose identity was so tied to performing, this diagnosis was heartbreaking. Yet her illness is not the only painful chapter in her life. Long before she became a household name, Christina was already carrying heavy burdens. She entered Hollywood as a child, and from the start, the industry demanded more from her than it should have from someone so young. Her upcoming memoir is expected to pull back the curtain on her private struggles, her eating disorders, the pressures to stay thin, the abuse she experienced, and the way Hollywood failed to protect her. For many fans who only knew her as the funny and strong actress on screen, these stories may come as a shock. Christina Applegate's story is not only about fame and success, it is about survival. Christina Applegate was born on November 25, 1971, in Hollywood, California. Her father, Robert Applegate, was a record producer, and her mother, Nancy Pretty, was a singer and actress. At first glance, it might seem like Christina was born into a perfect Hollywood family, destined for stardom. But in truth, her early life was far from stable. Shortly after her birth, her parents separated, leaving her mother to raise her alone. Nancy struggled financially and had to work hard to make ends meet. Since she could not afford babysitters, she often took Christina with her to rehearsals, auditions, and sets. That meant that Christina's introduction to the entertainment industry came before she could even walk. At just 3 months old, she appeared with her mother on the soap opera Days of Our Lives. Soon after, she was featured in a commercial for Playtex baby bottles, at only 5 months old. Most babies spend their early years at home, learning to play and discovering the world slowly. Christina, on the other hand, was already performing for cameras. Learning that her value came from her looks and her ability to entertain. For her mother, these roles were a way to survive financially. But for Christina, it meant her childhood was shaped by pressures that no child should have to carry. Even small acts, like giving her candy to keep her quiet on set, were tied to performance. Instead of running on playgrounds, she was waiting under stage lights. Instead of being protected, she was being judged. From the very beginning, Hollywood was not just part of Christina's life, it was her entire life. This shaped her view of herself and left lasting marks that would follow her into adulthood. By the time Christina entered kindergarten, she was already a member of the Screen Actors Guild. She was not living the life of a normal child. Instead, she was working in an industry that often treated children like products instead of human beings. At 9 years old, she was cast in the horror movie Jaws of Satan. While the film itself did not become famous, for Christina, it marked her official entry into feature films. She continued to appear in shows such as Charles in Charge and Silver Spoons, earning recognition as a talented young actress. In 1986, she won a Young Artist Award for her role in Heart of the City. To the public, she was a rising star. But behind the scenes, her personal struggles were growing. One painful moment that would stay with her forever happened when she was only 8 years old. A neighborhood boy called her fat. It was just one word, but for Christina, it became a wound that never healed. That single insult planted the seed of insecurity that grew into a lifelong battle with her body. Her mother also added pressure by enrolling her in Weight Watchers as a teenager. Convinced that being thin was the key to success, instead of eating normally, Christina began restricting herself in extreme ways. At times, she admitted she would eat only 5 almonds a day. If she ate 6, she would feel like a failure, cry, and avoid people out of shame. This unhealthy cycle was not only dangerous to her body, but damaging to her mental health. Yet, the people around her did not see the problem. They praised her thinness without realizing the cost. Her own mother once asked her, "How did you do it?" When Christina lost weight, not understanding the suffering behind the number on the scale, for Christina, this reinforced the idea that her worth depended on her appearance. These painful lessons shaped how she saw herself for decades. Even as she smiled in front of cameras. In 1987, Christina Applegate's life changed forever when she landed the role of Kelly Bundy in Fox's new sitcom, Married with Children. At just 15 years old, she became a household name. The show was crude, controversial, and unlike anything else on television at the time. For Fox, it was a breakthrough, helping the network become a competitor against the major channels. For Christina, it was both a blessing and a curse. Her performance as Kelly Bundy, the dim-witted but lovable daughter, became iconic. Audiences adored her comedic timing and her Kellyisms, one-liners that fans repeated everywhere. She became a fan favorite and one of the faces of the show. But while the role brought her fame, money, and recognition, it also trapped her in a stereotype. To Hollywood, she was the blonde bombshell, the joke, the pretty face. Casting directors often refused to see her as anything else. At the same time, the pressure to stay thin only grew. She was terrified of gaining weight, believing it would ruin her role and career. Behind the scenes, she continued her unhealthy eating habits, barely surviving on food but hiding it well. No one realized how deeply she was struggling. The fame she gained from Married with Children was real, but so was the pain. The show gave her visibility, but it also locked her into an image she would fight to escape for years to come. As Married with Children made Christina famous, she began searching for opportunities that would prove she was more than Kelly Bundy. In 1991, she starred in her first major film, Don't Tell Mum, The Babysitter's Dead. At the time, she admitted she did not even want to do the movie. She was young, a bit arrogant, and believed she was above such projects. The movie was not a big hit when it was first released, opening modestly at the box office. But over time, audiences discovered it through VHS and TV reruns. It became a cult favorite, and many fans saw Christina in a new light. She showed she had the ability to lead a film, even if critics were not fully impressed. This pattern would follow her career. Time and again, she gave strong performances that audiences loved. Even when Hollywood did not value her as much as it should have, Christina worked hard to break away from the dumb blonde stereotype, fighting for roles that showed her depth and versatility. Sometimes she succeeded, and sometimes she faced rejection. But she never gave up. She appeared in films, television shows, and even stage productions, always determined to prove she was more than one character. Her journey reflected the challenges of many women in Hollywood, where stereotypes and typecasting limited opportunities. For Christina, Every success came with hidden battles, not just with the industry but also with herself. Behind Christina's public success, her private